Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi ala ni'mat al-Islam. نستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونؤمن به عز وجل. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وبعد. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking His assistance, His guidance, proclaiming our belief and our trust within Him. And we affirm that He alone deserves worship subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that He has sent messengers and prophets throughout time, and that this process has concluded with the coming of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May God's peace and blessings be upon him. And the Quran tells us those whom God gives guidance, none can lead those persons astray. And similarly, those whom He has not provided guidance cannot be given guidance by any. And the Quran also says, and this is just some introduction, the Quran also says that God is the one to be glorified in the heavens and the earth. The sovereign, the majestic, the glorious, the wise. It is He, meaning is Allah. And these are just some introduction to the topic. It is He who has sent His messenger. هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. It is He who was made to emerge a prophet, a messenger, from among a people who are uneducated people. هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. And this prophet's job, this messenger's job, I'm actually I'm sort of translating it in my mind. This messenger's job is to relate to them the signs of God and wisdom, because they had been astray before. And the next verse, again, this is an introduction. This is from Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Surah number 63. And to benefit those who are not present. This is how the last verse reads. And to bring benefit to those who are not present, who are not even there in the midst of the Prophet Muhammad. And this is God's will, and He is the powerful and the wise. So we also began by praising Allah in general, by expressing gratitude to Allah. And the greatest thing to be grateful to Allah for, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the blessing of Islam. Alhamdulillahi ala ni'mat al-Islam. To be grateful to God for the blessing of Islam. And again, what is Islam? Islam it's been coming forth through prophets and messengers. Each prophet, each messenger, or each scripture giving its own contribution, for lack of a better expression. And this process concluding with the coming of Muhammad, Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, and of the Quran given to Muhammad. And in terms of the teachings that came before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the scriptures or the prophets that came before him, there are admittedly some remnants of that which remain. We can still find traces, remnants, stories of the original teachings of the authentic teachings of those prophets and scriptures. But as we know, or as we should know, even with that said, with that recognized, Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet Muhammad is the only prophet whose life is well known and well documented in history. It's an open book for all to see. And admittedly, there are some details here and there that academics and scholars argue about or dispute. But overall, the details of the Prophet's life, the broad picture of the Prophet's life is available. We know when he was born. We know when he died. We know where he's buried. We know about his marriages. We know about his battles. We know about his treaties. The broad details of the Prophet's life are well known. So, it is usual for Muslim speakers to spend a lot of time talking about the Prophet Muhammad. Talking about this thing or that thing, this thing he said or this thing that he did, or this observation that was made about him. It is very common for Muslim speakers to spend a great deal of time and spend a great deal of energy talking about Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. And particularly so in the week to come, because next weekend is the Mawlid al-Nabi, the time of the Prophet's birth, which is celebrated in much of the Islamic world. But my khutbah today does not seek to focus on Prophet Muhammad. I don't intend to spend a great deal of time focusing on the Prophet Muhammad. Rather, I want to focus upon one of his most prominent followers. A man who accepted Islam in the Prophet's early mission. He's one of the first people to have accepted Islam. And this man was not only the Prophet's good friend, even before the revelation came to him, but he also became the father-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. And the reason I want to look at this person for a moment, I will give you his name in a moment if you haven't figured it out. I want to focus on this person, radiallahu anh, for a moment, because we want to see how this person, how this man, how this noble man understood the message of Islam. Because it helps us to zoom in on the core issues as he saw it. And the man that I am referring to is Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr As-Siddeeq. May Allah be pleased with him. See, and again, we are all aware of this, I believe. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Abu Bakr became the leader, the Khalifa. He became the ruler of the Muslim government. And one of the jobs that the Khalifa did, radiallahu anh, is that he would deliver the Friday khutbah, just as we are delivering the Friday khutbah today from this podium, from this masjid. And before sharing, I'm going to share some excerpts from a khutbah that's recorded in Bayhaqi, this hadith source, I want to share some excerpts from a khutbah that Sayyidina Abu Bakr gave. But before that, I want to sort of re-emphasize, or put it in a different way, that using today's language, the way that Muslims speak, Abu Bakr and all of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, they were what today we call converts. Now, I don't like this word converts, but this is the way that Muslims typically speak. You know, they'll say this person is a convert and this person is not a convert. This is the way we speak. It's problematic in my thinking, but this is the way we speak. So all of the early Muslims were obviously converts. And they had been born in a society of ignorance, in a period, Asl Jahiliyyah, in a period of ignorance. And they were blessed by Allah, the Almighty, to be guided into Islam. And so, perhaps another way to frame this introduction is, what does guidance look like? How did the early Muslims understand what guidance was? So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he begins his khutbah. Well, I shouldn't say begins, because I'm actually going through excerpts, not through the whole speech. But one of the things he says in his khutbah is, وَمَنْ يَطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ رَشَدَ. He says that those who give their obedience to God and His Messenger, these people are certainly guided. This is line number 1 I'm emphasizing. Those who give their obedience to God and His Messenger, that they are certainly guided. So this statement is not just a paraphrase of the Quran. This statement is a statement of confidence. This is a statement of real iman, of real confidence. This is a statement of conviction. He means it. It's not rhetoric. He means it. And he, may Allah be pleased with him, he speaks this way because he has been able to internalize the deen. It's not, becoming a Muslim is not joining a fraternity, joining a club that you pay membership dues in order to be able to vote and make decisions within the club, or a gang, or a business partnership. Nor is Islam just debating opinions. You know how people did, like yesterday you had Thanksgiving dinner, so certainly you had debates about politics and maybe religion, definitely sports. Last night at Thanksgiving dinner you had debates about these things. Islam, becoming a Muslim, is not just as a way to do things like that. So continuing on, talking about Abu Bakr's statement, وَمَنْ يُطِيعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ رَشَدَ. The Quran itself teaches us to أَسْتَجِيبُ لِلَّهِ وَلِرَسُولِهِ, to respond to the call of God and His Prophet, of God and His Messenger, because it is a call that gives life, meaning it gives meaning and purpose to one's life. Meaning that Islam reinvigorates. Or you can even use the expression, forgive me for using the expression, that Islam resurrects life. So, excuse me. So Abu Bakr, God be pleased with him, Abu Bakr, in his khutbah, again, it's a long khutbah, and I'm only looking at maybe 3 lines of his khutbah. I've already gone through line 1, so 1/3 finished. In his khutbah, Abu Bakr, he highlights what he sees as traits that need to be addressed within his audience, within his community. One of the things that he says, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَاتَّبَعَ الْهَوَى وَاتَّبَعَ الْهَوَى. He says, وَإِيَّاكُمْ is an expression in Arabic that is basically, it's a warning of the thing that follows. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَاتَّبَعَ الْهَوَى. You are warned against following or obeying whims. He's warning his audience not to be whimsical, not to follow or obey whims. So, life choices, and again, this is the words that he chooses. He's talking about hawa. Life choices are not to be whimsical. Our existence, our worldview should be intelligent. Making intelligent choices, making intelligent decisions, looking for our personal growth, or in his case, because he's the Khalifa, he's the leader of the Muslims, for communal growth. And this word, hawa, is a very deeply nuanced word, not just in Arabic language, but particularly in the Quran. It's a very nuanced, it's a very deep expression, deep word. And the Quran says, I hope I remember the ayah correctly, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهٌ هَوَاهُ. Do you not see the one who takes as his God his hawa, his whims, his lusts, etc.? I hope I remember the ayah correctly. So, hawa refers to desires, to whims, to lusts, to basically to undisciplined behavior. And this is certainly advice that we need in today's world. And I think especially so for converts. Again, I hate this word. I'm reluctant to use this word. But this is advice that we need in today's world, or guidance, or information, or something to think about in today's world. So, for example, if we are unsettled, unsure of a particular action, meaning we don't know if a particular idea or a particular action that we want to do, if it is Islamically acceptable or not, if it's going to take us to where we want to go to or not, then we should seek out the answer to find out if it's actually Islamically acceptable or not. And in today's world, we tend to go to the internet and look at islamicity.com or different websites that give you rulings, give you fatwas. The Quran doesn't tell us to go to websites. I'm not trying to discourage you from it, but I am trying to give you something to think about. The Quran says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. It says, ask those who know if you do not know. And to ask those who know implies that you have some sort of relationship with that person or with that figure, and that you will trust that person to give you the best advice. Whether you follow or not is your business, but that statement implies that you know who you're asking. When you have a medical issue, you don't go to the bus driver. You don't do that. Rather, you go to your doctor, whom you have a relationship with and whom you pay money, or whom your insurance pays money to, pays their fees to. And I'm getting a little bit distracted, but I can't help myself. Let me share a story that's associated with this ayah. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Another ayah says, فَاسْأَلْ أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. The plural is not there. The story says, it's about one of the great imams, Imam Shafi'i. And the story says that an atheist, mulhid, atheist, that an atheist came to this imam and he asked the imam a question. He says, is it true that the Quran says that it contains explanation about all things? وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تَبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Is that true? This person, this atheist, goes to Imam Shafi'i. Imam says yes. He says, okay. Where in the Quran does it say how to bake bread? Imam says, let me find it for you. So the atheist comes along, where is it? Where in the Quran? Where in this book does it show you or teach you how to bake bread? He says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So what he did was, the Imam described the process of how to bake bread. He says, what I did was, I went to the baker, and I asked him, how does he do it? And he told me. In other words, I asked a person who knew because I didn't know. So the Quran does tell you how to bake bread. It does tell you how to do it. It tells you to ask, consult those who know. So, this command or this idea, going back to Abu Bakr's statement, he's warning against following whims. And this ayah is an example of not following action, or not having our action, or not having our lives based upon whimsical choices or whimsical decisions. And concluding the first section of the khutbah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He make us like Abu Bakr, a man who was firm in his faith and firm in his intelligence. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم وبعد. Abu Bakr's speech, there are some more lines I want to share from his speech. It continues, فَقَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ حُفِظَ مِنَ الْهَوَى وَالدَّمِعَ وَالْغَضَبِ وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْفَخْرِ. These are Abu Bakr's observations, a person who internalized the deen. He says, the most successful is the one who is guarded, hufidha, who is guarded from whims, hawa, from discontentedness. Tami'a is a difficult word for me to really render, but discontentedness and anger. There's a fourth thing, but right now I'm focusing on these three. Indeed, the most successful is the one who is guarded from whims, from discontentedness, and from anger. How is a person guarded from those things? Well, I would say that he is guarded by something called taqwa. That is how he's guarded. He's guarded not by wearing a t-shirt that has the word taqwa on it, but rather he is guarded by that notion in his mind, in his heart, that God is real, that God asks certain things from him or her. So the person is guarded by taqwa, and he's guarded by right thinking and by right company. I want to emphasize that because we live in a world, particularly in our society, I shouldn't say this is a whole world phenomenon, a universal phenomenon, but it's definitely a Western phenomenon or an American phenomenon. We live in a world where we want to do everything by ourselves. We are encouraged and taught in this society to go it alone. This is what we are taught in this society, to go it alone. But that has not been the normal way of doing things. There's a thing called peer pressure. That's real. There is such a thing called peer pressure. And no matter what amount of faith you have, faith is reinforced by the social ties, the goodly social ties, the goodly social relations, as well as the proper thinking. Islam has within it certain commands, certain prohibitions, certain practices that are designed to reinforce the morals that it preaches. So yes, our religion tells us to believe in God. It tells us to pray. It tells us to fast. It tells us to pay zakat. It tells us to go on pilgrimage to Mecca if we have, to the Kaaba, if we have the physical ability and the financial ability. Yes, it tells us that. But it also tells us to abstain from intoxicants. I hope I don't need to quote any verses to prove that. It tells us to abstain from gambling. It gives us a lot of things. Likewise, the Sunnah, the way, the directive that's given by Prophet Muhammad in the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it also gives us information. Gives us some tips as to how to avoid certain things that have to do with this subject. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, one of his hadiths is to not look at the one below. Do not look at the one above, but rather look at the one below. You know, meaning that people may feel jealous, or they feel resentment. That's a better term, resentment. We're going back to Tami'ah. So some people, they feel resentment. Like, how come this person has so much money and this person has this and that person has that, and you feel like they don't deserve it? You feel like you deserve it. The Prophet said, don't look at the one above your status. Rather, look at the one below your status. Because there's always those who have less than you have. I'm going to share another story to illustrate that. And the story is that there was once a poor man. I'm going to change around some of the wording of the story. But there was once a poor man who comes to a sheikh, to a religious scholar, a religious teacher. And he's lamenting, he's crying about his poverty. And the sheikh says, okay, how about this? Let me cut off your arms, I'll give you $5,000. Man says, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, no way. So I say, okay, how about this one? Let me cut off your legs and I'll give you $10,000. And the poverty-stricken man says, no way. And so the sheikh says, see, you're already worth $15,000. So the Prophet said, look at the one above you. I keep inverting the hadith. The Prophet said, look at the one below you rather than the one above you. So it helps to take away that feeling of resentment or discontentedness. And even for those who are blessed with certain things, this religion encourages them not to show off with it. So the Prophet said also, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells men, he says, men should not wear gold or silk. That's what he says. Let me share this. I heard a Q&A by Imam Muhammad, and someone asked him about this prohibition. And he says, well, when I go to the store, I make sure that my ties are not silk. You know, when he goes to the shop and he sees a tie, he will make sure, look on the tag and make sure it's polyester or something that is not silk. But the Prophet said that men should not wear gold or men should not wear silk. And that's a very good place to start. In order to avoid, not just in following what the Prophet said, we should always follow what the Prophet taught and said, but it helps in avoiding creating hasad and creating resentment or jealousy from others. So, using this as an example, so our modesty is not just in the physical areas, also modesty in the way that we present ourselves. So to use perhaps, I don't know if this is bad language, but the Muslim who is conscious of the Prophet's teaching should not go bling bling. That he has so much gold on his hands and his arms and his mouth, what do they call them? Grills. That they're so shiny that when the sun hits it, it blinds the observer. So there is a modesty there. If for no other reason except to help and discouraging resentment from other people. Continuing on, the Prophet ﷺ said, don't give in to the tendency to be angry. La taghdab. Don't give in to the tendency to be angry. So, meaning to avoid those things which inflame such anger or inflame such emotion. Another hadith says that, excuse me. Another hadith says, to sort of paraphrase it, that if you yourself becoming angry, if you're sitting, stand. I think we've heard this hadith from our imams before. If you are sitting, stand. And if you're walking, run. Go make wudu, ablution. Go pray 2 rak'ahs, a 2 rak'ahs prayer. Meaning to remove yourself from that which is inflaming those emotions from you. This is the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. The last thing that is mentioned in this part of Sayyidina Abu Bakr's khutbah, the last thing that is mentioned is وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْفَخْرُ. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْفَخْرُ. That he gives warning about pride that is based on family, or pride that is based on tribal affiliation. That's the last thing he mentioned. Then I want to keep emphasizing that Abu Bakr is a convert. And again, I don't like using this terminology, but this is terminology that we are familiar with. This is terminology that we use. Abu Bakr was a convert. And I believe that he is saying these things because he is emphasizing the things which he finds the most important. He is emphasizing the things that not only that he personally finds important, but he is emphasizing things that he finds important for the community. And before I finish this, let me share something else about Abu Bakr. Just entered my mind, and this is in Bukhari. You ever came across, I know this might get me in trouble, but I have bodyguards in the audience. You ever come across these issues they call isbal, that you know to have your pants leg rolled up? You ever come across this? That people are harassing you about your pants legs if they happen to not look like Steve Urkel's pants legs? You ever come across that? I'm sure you have come across that. Let me put it back down. So, there is a hadith that they call it isbal. There are some narrations that talk about having the pants leg above your ankle. But do you know why it's like that? It is because of arrogance. Because people used to let their clothes drag out of arrogance. You know, just as people today may drive flashy cars or wear flashy clothing, they used to make their clothes long as a way of arrogance or as a way of showing off. And for a reason I can't recall off immediately, Abu Bakr did not wear his clothes, and his clothes still dragged. And the Prophet ﷺ was okay with that, because he says Abu Bakr does not have pride. In other words, he's not arrogant. So there was a reason behind that, doing the whole pant leg thing. All right, there's a reason behind it that may not exist in today's world, in today's culture. So let me go back to Abu Bakr's statement. So in today's language, we can understand that expression to refer to racism, to refer to nationalism, to thinking that just because we are from this or that we are God's gift to mankind, that we are God's chosen people above and beyond the rest of mankind. We can understand it like that. And there is an ayah of the Quran that says that if you think yourself to be better than everybody else, فَتَمَنَّوا الْمَوْتِ, then seek death. In other words, you think that you are God's number one? Okay, why don't you just kill yourself now and go to God faster? There's a verse that says that. So Abu Bakr is warning against pride based on lineage, pride based upon tribal affiliation, or in today's language, nationalistic affiliation or racial affiliation. And I would say this even extends, excuse me, I would say that this even extends to things like sports, believe it or not. America does not have this problem too much, except when people get drunk. But in the European countries, when two rival soccer teams have a game, and this has been known to happen, they have a game, and then one team loses, then there is a riot. People get arrested, property gets damaged, people get assaulted, all because someone lost. This team A lost to team B. And in Egypt, a while back, they actually executed some people. If you follow the news, they actually executed some people who were involved in these kinds of violence based upon one team losing and the other team winning. So it has a lot of implications that this idea, إِيَّاكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْفَخْرِ, this has implications in areas that we may not immediately consider or immediately think about. So I hope that this has been clear in that Sayyidina Abu Bakr is emphasizing certain things which seem to really relate to today's world. And we're not even going to Rasulullah at the moment. Rasulullah, the Prophet, is, you may consider him the root of it all. And people like Abu Bakr, they are the leaves that fall from his tree. They what he internalized from the Prophet was really deep and really profound if we really think about it. And how we can look at that or think about that or live about that in today's world, again, it's a really profound situation. So there's another thing that people talk about, and they talk about you must follow the Salaf. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have heard this before, right? That you must follow the Salaf. You must follow the first generations of Muslims in the way they understood, in the way they practice Islam. Well, I'm going to ignore some of the language associated with that, but I will say, if you want to follow Salaf As, follow the first generations, fine, very good. Follow Abu Bakr. Don't worry about following Abu Bakr or following the Sahaba in the way they dressed. Can you wear sandals in November, January, February, winter in the United States? Sometimes I do, but I wear my socks even. And that's only because I don't feel like putting on my real shoes. I know that's a mistake, but sometimes I'm lazy. I'm not going to lie about that. Sometimes I'm lazy about that. Aren't we all lazy like that sometimes? Come to the masjid in your flip-flops. You're taking off your shoes anyway. Who's going to notice? So if you want to follow Salaf As, fine. You don't have to follow them in the way that, that use the toilet, in the way that they dress, in the way that they traveled, in the way that they did this, in the way that they did. Follow them in their morals. The morals that they gained from Rasulullah. From the morals, from the proper thinking that they gathered from Islam, from the Quran, and directly from Rasulullah, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You want to follow the Salaf As-Salih? Yes, follow the Salaf As-Salih in the most important things. So we should follow them in the most important things, in the way that Islam impacted their thinking, in the way Islam impacted their hearts. You want to follow Salaf Salih? Follow Abu Dhar. We talk about Abu Bakr, now we talk about Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu. I'm sure that this masjid is called Masjid Bilal. So this is a hadith related to Bilal. Maybe you say I'm pandering to the audience. Well, fine, I'm pandering to the audience. The hadith says that Abu Dhar and Bilal were having an argument. And I have no idea what the argument was about. But they're having an argument. And during the course of the argument, Abu Dhar, who is you look at his biography, he's a very spiritual man. He is what you would call a zahid, someone who is not really a worldly person. He's someone who's more comfortable to be out by himself somewhere, spending his life in worship. This is what he's known for throughout his life. But during the course of the argument, Abu Dhar calls Bilal, he says, "You son of a black." Ibn Sauda, you son of a black. And in today's language, you may say this is the N word. You know people get mad and say things like that to each other? Maybe you don't mean it, but you say it because you know it's going to get under their skin. Oh yeah, I'm going to get him now. So he says that. So the hadith says that, and there are different wordings of this, but it is in Bukhari, and it is mentioned in some of the other books of hadith. It says that the Prophet heard this and he became red with anger. This is what the hadith says. That the Prophet Muhammad, the mercy to mankind, the mercy to those who have faith, rahmatul lil mu'mineen, rahmatul lil alameen. It says that he became red with anger. And he tells Abu Dhar, إِنَّكَ إِمْرُؤٌ فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَّةٌ إِنَّكَ إِمْرُؤٌ فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَّةٌ. He tells Abu Dhar, he says, indeed you have elements of ignorance remaining within you. You stupid man. Nice way. What's wrong with you, man? So, did Abu Dhar try to argue it down? Have we heard this hadith before? Did Abu Dhar try to, no, I didn't mean it like that? That's not what Abu Dhar did. And this is to the credit of Abu Dhar, and ultimately is to the credit of Rasulullah, or to the credit of Islam, because it shows you what Islam did to those who were immediately impacted by its message. What did Abu Dhar do? He falls down. He puts his face to the ground and does not want to get up unless Bilal steps over it. I'm sorry, I keep breaking all of your items. This is his way of apologizing. Not the sort of ways that people apologize with a defense in it. This is his way of apologizing. And it shows you, it should show us two things. The first thing is that they're human beings. The companions of the Prophet, they are human beings with their own issues, their own idiosyncrasies, who have come out of Jahiliyyah, who come out of the environment or the thinking of ignorance, and they will be taught by a teacher. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. A teacher who teaches them the scripture, the Quran, that's on this table here. Teaching them the Quran and teaching them the hikmah. It shows us that they are normal human beings with their struggles, but it shows you the impact that Islam had upon them. I love talking about this particular aspect of things because I find it to be ever relevant in today's world. There is a brother that I know, and he told me this. He's had a very rough life, and I'm not going to share with you the details of this man's life. And the results of it had made him what we would call a racist. And so he said that when he became a Muslim, when he accepted Islam, he said that he struggled with accepting a white man as his brother. That's what he told me, that he struggled with that. But he finally reached a point where he accepted that the white man is his brother. It wasn't easy for him from what he told me, but he finally accepted. And wallahi, this made him a better person. If I told you his details, you would believe me. You may not believe me now, but if I told you his details, you would see like, wow, that is wonderful. And it is actually an increaser of faith for someone such as myself. So we don't need to change our clothes to be like Salaf As, to be like the companions of the Prophet. We don't need to change our clothes. We don't need to change our food except for the haram food. We change the haram food. If you want to eat halal bacon, be my guest. Just don't make sure it's not porky. We don't need to change our clothes, but we need to change our way of thinking in order to conform to the divine will. This is what the companions of the Prophet did. More importantly than anything else, they changed their thinking to conform to the divine will. وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَطَعْنَا غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. The believers are those who say, we hear and we affirm. They pray to God for forgiveness, and they acknowledge that it's to God that they have to return, or that we have to return. وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَطَعْنَا غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. So we pray to Allah in the words of His Prophet, يَا مُقَلَّبَ الْقُلُوبِ ثَبِّتْ قُلُوبَنَا عَلَى دِينِكَ. O change of hearts, keep our hearts firm upon your deen. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا مَعَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ رَبَّنَا آمَنَّا فَاكْتُبْنَا مَعَ الشَّاهِدِينَ رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنتَ الْوَهَّابُ رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ جَامِعُ النَّاسِ لِيَوْمٍ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَخْلِفُ مِيعَادَهُ سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي الصلاة حي الصلاة كل كلمة الصلاة كل كلمة الصلاة.